Welcome to the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm your host, Amy Brooks. This is a podcast that invites you to remember who you are, return to yourself, and rise into your highest and best soul self. Every week, I will be sharing inspiring conversations about topics that hold keys to your awakening. My mission as an international evidential psychic medium, Reiki practitioner, and intuitive mentor is to help you rise into who you were born to be. Enjoy the show. Hello, risers. Welcome back to another weekly episode of the Intuitive Rising podcast. I'm Amy Brooks, your host, and I'm so happy to see you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to continue to support me and the podcast. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you have not given this podcast a rating, I would so appreciate it if you would head on down to the rating system below you somewhere and give it a 5-star review if you feel like it deserves one. I so would appreciate that. It helps my podcast become more visible so that more people can see it and listen to it. And if you're someone who has benefited from listening to this podcast, then that would be so helpful to assist another in their own spiritual evolution and growth. So here we are today. We're going to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is one about spirit babies. But before we get started in that, I have two little housekeeping notes to begin with. Number one is that my partner in crime, my husband Scott, who handles all of my stuff other than, doing readings and recording the podcast, he handles a good majority of everything else. Shout out to Scott. We appreciate you, Scott. He has created a Discord page for us, for this community. So I'm going to include that in the show notes. So Discord it's like an app. You can download it, and then it's just, you know what it reminds me of? I don't know too much about Discord. I haven't spent too much time on there just yet. This community is brand new on Discord. However, I'm going to make time to get to know what it is, and some of you might be very familiar with it, but it is a free app, and it's a place for us to come together as a community. It reminds me a lot of, remember back in the day with like a chat room when the internet was brand new? It reminds me a little bit of that. And so there's like a nostalgic quality, but I feel like there's a lot of pros and benefits of Discord, which is why Scott set that up for us. But it will be a place that we can connect in community, that you guys can connect with each other. You can ask each other questions or share things with each other. We can post links of things we're watching or we find interesting, or things we want to talk about, or a book that we're reading. It kind of anything goes, so long as we're being respectful and kind. So if that's of interest to you, you'll be able to find the information below in the show notes. As well, number two piece of housekeeping is that on Friday, May 17th, which is coming up in a few weeks at this time, I am doing a free live mediumship demonstration. This is something I do every few months or so, maybe about 4 or 5 times a year. And the reason I do that is a way to give back to community. It's also a way to show people that might not otherwise be familiar with what real life evidential mediumship looks like. So it's something that will be recorded. It will be shared on my YouTube page, so that people can witness and see what spirit communication is all about. And like I said, this is a free event. So if it's something that you're interested in attending, it will be happening on Zoom. And if you head to my website, theintuitiverising.com, at the very top of the homepage, there is a teal colored banner, and there's a click here button. And if you click on that, it will take you to the page in which you just have to submit your email, and that's it. And then a couple of days before the event on the 17th of May, I will take all those emails and send them the Zoom links for the event. And that's it. So it's kind of one of those things. It's a true demonstration, which means that I'll just open myself up to the spirit world and connect to whomever is coming through versus taking requests. So not everybody that attends is going to receive a reading. That would be quite impossible. We would be there for a very long time if I was to read everybody in the room. But it is a really good opportunity for you to just see kind of spontaneous mediumship connection and evidence and how all that works. So if that's of interest to you, check out the link in the show notes as well, so you can get in on that before I close it off, because I don't want there to be like, hundreds of people in there. I'd rather it be somewhat small-ish, so we can keep the energy a little bit more intact. But I think maybe 30-40 people. I think we're at about 17 signups right now, and it just opened about 2 days ago. So get in there if it's of interest to you. Okay, now that is all taken care of, let's talk a little bit about spirit babies. So this, like I said, is near and dear to my heart, as I have my own spirit baby. I have talked about him many times on this podcast and shared my experience of going through a miscarriage at about 4 months pregnant. This was in 2014. It was my first miscarriage. As far as I know sometimes we as women, we can have very, very early miscarriages, and sometimes we don't know it's a miscarriage because we just think it's, our monthly cycle returning. However, this time I knew about it. Obviously, I was 4 months pregnant, and I had never I don't think that I have, actually, I should say I know, because in this case, I know as a medium that's the only, that would be the only time that I've experienced that, like up until that point, because before that, if there had been a loss, then I definitely would be connected to that little soul, that little spirit, in some way, shape, or form, through the work that I do. So, so this happened. It was devastating, traumatic, absolutely rocked my world, and was extremely heartbreaking. And I just want to preface to say right here where we are in this moment, that if you are someone who has or is going through a loss of your own, doesn't matter what stage of pregnancy, it doesn't matter, even if we're going to be talking a little bit about future babies as well, and how they can come in sometimes in intuitive and or psychic type readings. And so if you're someone who is actively trying for a baby as well, this conversation may be of interest to you. But if you are someone who's navigating the loss currently, or you have, and you're not quite ready to really hear about experiences, whether they're mine or clients, that I'll be sharing today, then, I'm just going to let you know now that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you are not wanting to hear about that, then, this is kind of like the warning. That's where we're going right now. But I'm sending so much love, so much love, wrapping my arms around you, energetically as best as I can, and holding space for you if you're navigating such a loss and you're healing from such a loss. So, like I said, like I just kind of hinted at, there's two different ways that I connect to spirit babies, and one is through mediumship readings. So mediumship, as most of you will know, is connecting to a person who was living and now is no longer. And so they are no longer in their physical form. They're back to their energetic form. And that's what mediumship is. So I do connect to babies that have been lost through miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, um, passing away, at birth or soon after, within the first year of life, etc. I have a story and an experience for each of those loss, ways to lose that I just spoke about. And so, they come through very often when I'm connecting to someone that's connected to them, right? So when the client that I'm sitting with has a spirit baby, whether they've been lost themselves, like they were the one to lose the baby, their spouse was the one, or someone very, very, very close to them, that little spirit baby, more often than not, will come through to bring through guidance, evidence, love, um, support, comfort, etc. And it's a very beautiful healing experience for not only my client but also for myself to be in the presence of that. It feels very sacred, and special. And so that's a way that I connect. But another way that I connect is when I'm doing an intuitive guidance and or psychic reading, and I'm connecting to an energy, a little soul that it tells me that they are on the way or that they are ready to come. So there's been many, many, many baby predictions in my work over the last 6 years as well. We'll talk a little bit about those today too. They'll tell me that they're coming, that they're on the way. And, sometimes I will do a mediumship reading where we're connecting to someone. I'm thinking, I'll give you an example. Here's an example. A few years ago, I would say probably in 2020. I feel I could be wrong, but I feel like we're around that time period, relatively early in my journey. We're just a year or two in. And I was doing a mediumship reading for a group. So there was, I believe it was a mom and three daughters. We were virtual, so I could see them on the screen. They were all together and I was connecting. And so I connected to the daughter's father and the mom's husband, this man I connected to, and he was bringing through so many loving messages and memories and guidance for them and evidence for them. And then he brought up that there was a new soul ready to join the family. And I kept wanting to direct my attention to a specific daughter that was sat in front of me on the screen. And I was like, so I'm bringing through this evidence that her dad is saying that there's a little one, and they want to come to you. And so I looked at her and I said, I feel very strongly that this message is for you, your dad is bringing forward that there's a little life that is ready to come to you. And she kind of looked at me and she's like, I don't know about that. Like I have no plans anytime soon to conceive a baby. Maybe the jury is out as to whether or not I even want to do that, but definitely not planning that right now. And I said, okay, I just I can't let that go. I just have to let you know, right? So just if it's something that you're not wanting right now, then just let's be frank, just be cautious, be prepared, right? If that's something you want to avoid, then let's take extra precaution. And so that was a little bit of a laugh as well, between mom and daughters. And that was the end of it. I went on to other things, talked about other things, what their dad was bringing through. And then no more than maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, I get a message, and it's from the partner of the daughter that I brought that through for. And he said, hi, my name is such and such, and I am such and such's partner. And you did a reading a couple weeks ago and brought through that you felt like her dad was saying that there was a baby coming to her. And she was kind of like, no, 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 no. And he said, I just want to let you know that we recently just found out that we're expecting, and that she very likely was either just pregnant or would have conceived within days after that. And I said, whoa, okay, amazing, congrats. And he's like, yeah, surprise, but happy news. And I'm like, okay, great. And in that reading, I remember as well her dad telling me that the little one that was going to be joining was a little boy. And I believe I brought through a time of year that I felt like that baby would either be conceived or born, or something like that. And so I said, well, you have to let me know if you find out, if you're having a little boy or a little girl, because I remember him saying so clearly there's a little boy coming. And he's like, yeah, we're definitely going to let you know. We're definitely going to find out. And so then a few months go by, and then I get another message from him, and he's like, and he sent me a picture, and it was a picture of a little diaper shirt, like a little onesie. And on it, it said, handsome like my dad. And I said, does this mean what I think it means? And he said, yes, we're having a little boy. You were right. And that person actually just 2 days ago, when I was doing a live on Instagram, popped in just to say hello on my live and said, I don't know if you remember me, but remember me? And I said, yeah, I remember you. How are you doing? And he said, good. And then later on, I noticed that he had sent me a picture in my DMs of that little boy who is now 3 years old. So that was amazing. And, that's not the only time that things like this have come through. Very often, I will connect to someone's loved one in spirit, and their mom or dad or brother or sister, whoever it is that we're connecting to that's passed. We'll talk about a baby that's coming, or they'll tell me that they know that a baby's just been born or somebody is pregnant right now. And there's always a lot of excitement from the spirit world around that. I'm also thinking of a reading I did. And in this case, it was an intuitive guidance reading. So that would be a psychic kind of reading that I did for a woman. And we connected again virtually. She was on the other side of the screen. And I was just connecting to things in her life that were relevant for her. There was some things around body and health that came in, some things around her husband and his career and job, and, just things in her life were coming forward. And then I said, I'm picking up on something, and I just want to, I know this is a sensitive topic, and I always preface to say something to this effect when I connect to information like this, because I know that words have power, right? And so I know if I'm bringing through something, especially if it's something that I feel like the person in front of me really, really wants and desire, that I have to be tactful, right? I have to be mindful about that information, because I'm in a place of, trust, and I really, really value that, right? It's really important to me. So anyhow, I said to her, I'm touching on a little bit of a sensitive topic that has to do with fertility. Are you open to hearing more about that? And she said, yes, please. Actually, that was an intention that I set for this reading today. My readings, when you're booking and filling out the intake form, it specifically says, like, please don't tell me what or who you want ahead of time. Just set your intentions that that's what you'd like to come through. And I would say like 90 plus percent of the time that comes through. And it's just so you don't feel like you're feeding the medium, right? It's so that and it's also so that hey, I thought that, I set that intention, and that intention was heard because Amy picked it up without me having to say anything. So that was an intention of hers, was I would love to know about what's going on my fertility journey, and if there are any children, in my future. So she already wanted to hear this. And I trust that too, because when I set my intentions to connect to your highest and best good, I'm not going to pick up on something that's something you don't want to hear about. Like, very rarely, right? It's more often than not, like, I trust, like, if something's coming in, it means let's talk about it and you want to talk about it. So anyways, so we connect, and I say, okay, because there's a topic of baby coming forward, and she's like, please, let's go there, let's talk about that. So I said, I'm connecting to a female energy, and she's not, a baby that's been lost. I don't feel that. I don't feel like this is a spirit baby, in the sense that you've lost her through miscarriage, or pregnancy loss in some way, and now she's waiting for you in spirit. I said, this feels like a new little energy that wants to come for you. She has never been born, and I said, she's letting me know that she's coming to you. And she gave me a month, and in this moment, I believe that the month was December, and I said, she very clearly is talking about December, so I want you to pay attention. This may be when you conceive, or it may be when baby is born, but December is coming in very, very, very strongly. And in this moment, I also feel as if this reading took place at the beginning, like around the new year, right? So we're talking about a December, probably at the end of the year. So I said, there's something very clearly coming in about this December. And there's just bits and bobs, that she brought through, and things that would come through about the personality of this little spirit baby, etc. But the main message was, hey, I'm coming. I'm a little girl. Don't get discouraged. The timing had to be right, and I'm coming to you, and there's a connection in December. And then a couple months go by, and I hear back, as I always do. So guess what? I'm expecting a little girl, and she's due in December. And this was a few years ago now. So every once in a while, I'll hear from this lady, and she'll say, "So remember when you told me about this aspect of personality, or that this something about this?" And she said, as she's getting older, that is true. I can see that within her personality, and I think that's absolutely amazing. In this moment, I wasn't planning to talk about this experience, but I feel like I'm being reminded of it. So I'm going to tell you about this. This would have been when were we? The end of 2017, I believe. So you guys know my journey really kind of kick-started around January 2018. That was the month and the year that my father transitioned to the spirit world really unexpectedly, and how that um, his passing really jump started my mediumship, so to speak. Like, it just very clearly, I realized that I was a medium, and I was capable of spirit communication. But this was before that. So it was before I was consciously aware that things were happening, but in hindsight, I can see that things were happening. And now I can see that things are happening my whole darn life. But, this is a couple months before. I think it was the fall of 2017. And I had met this woman a couple years before at a military resource center. My husband was in the military at the time, as you guys know, and this woman's husband was also in the military. And so this is just like a community place for people to access resources in the community, to get to know each other, to hang out, etc. And I met this woman there, and I think we had followed each other on social media. Didn't really talk too much, didn't really see each other too much, but she had reached out to me sometime in 2017 and said, "Hey, do you want to get together for a coffee?" At this point, she was working downtown, and my youngest, who is now 8, was about a year and a half or so. And so I said, "Sure, let's go grab lunch or a coffee or something. I will meet you at the coffee shop right, around the corner from your work." So we did that. And like I said, this was probably only our second time really sitting together face to face and interacting in a way that, was more intentional versus just passing each other in the hall or on the street. And the whole purpose was to get to know each other a little bit better. And so I ordered my drink first. We were taking turns because I had the stroller with the little guy, and we grabbed a table so that we could secure a table because it was really busy at lunchtime. So I did that first while she sat with him, and then she went up and got her drink. When she sat back down at the table, in my mind's eye, I could see and perceive and feel a little soul right next to her on her left hand side, like right here, on this right. It was almost as if I could see their face right next to her face. And I was kind of sitting there I don't what is this? At the time, I wasn't 100% sure that that was spirit. I wasn't consciously working with spirit or even exploring that too much, but I couldn't deny that something was happening. So I'm kind of sitting there thinking, how do I navigate this? What am I supposed to do with this? I felt very distracted by this energy that I could perceive. So, and she could read it on my face, she could see. So she goes, "What? What's going on?" I could see that you have a question, or that you're mulling something over in your head. What? I'm an open book, just say it. And I said, mm, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. This is kind of an interesting way to lead a conversation or get to know each other. And I don't know how you're going to feel about this. Or are you even going to be open about it? And she said, "Amy, just say it. I'm an open book." I said, "Okay. Just warning you, buckle up." And so she's like, "Okay." So I said, "First of all, I want to ask you a question. Would you like to have another child?" And she kind of went, huh. I knew the question had taken her aback. She wasn't expecting me to ask that question. She had a child already. She had a little girl who was a couple of years old. And I knew that, but I wanted to start off this conversation with is that something that you want, before I tell her that there's somebody here. And she said, "Why do you ask that question?" Really great poker face this woman has. Okay, great poker face, because she wasn't giving anything away. Not like me, who she could read like a book in the moment. And she goes, "Why do you ask that question?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how you're going to take this, but sometimes I feel like maybe I'm sensitive to spirit." And she's like, "Okay." And I said, "As soon as you sat down, when you had your coffee and you sat in front of me, I can see a little baby next to you on your left-hand side." So she's like, "What? Like right here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Really?" And so she's like, "Well, tell me what you feel or see." And I knew she was kind of like mostly skeptical and a little bit freaked out, but also intrigued, like, where is this going? And so I said, "Well, I feel like I'm connecting to a little girl. Um, this is what I feel she looks like." And I said, "These are some things that come in, and I feel like they may be to say that these are things that she will enjoy as she gets older. Um, like toddler, kindergarten age, this just feels like things that she will enjoy." I said, "It's almost like I'm picking up on things that will happen, and will be a part of your life." So I told her all of this, and then she said, "Okay." So she's like, "I'm very freaked out because I haven't told a soul, nobody knows other than my husband and I, that we are actively trying for another baby." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so she said, "So the fact that you're picking up on that in some way, and even like bringing through this possible baby, is crazy and insane, but kind of comforting and interesting too." And I was like, like, "N- I don't know. Like, I don't know what this is." And I just felt like I had to tell you. And so she's like, "Okay, well, like, I'm glad you did, because in some way, it provides me a little bit of comfort. Like, maybe that's possible, right? Or maybe that's right, the right thing to do." And so, anyways, a few months go by, and then she comes over. They were getting posted from Kingston to another city in Canada. And so she came over with her little girl, and our kids played, and we hung out and drank tea and chatted. And she shared with me that she was expecting. Uh, and we chatted about the possibility that the little one that I saw was, in fact, the little one that she had conceived and was carrying in her belly at that point. And then a few months more go by, and she finds out it's a little girl. So that's shared with me as well. And and then in time, over the years, she's reached out to share bits and pieces of things that came through, that now make total sense. I remember in particular seeing like a soccer shirt, like, when kids join like little kids soccer teams, and they have those cute little shirts on that like almost go to their knees. I saw that, and I saw a soccer ball, and I remember that very clearly. And that's something that is a part of their life now as well. So all that to say, spirit babies definitely make their presence known, whether they are babies that have been lost, like I said, or babies that are coming to you and want to come to you. And I find it so comforting, especially when we've had a loss and that little one is still connected to us, and we can know that, we can trust that based on what they tell us and bring through for us, in an intuitive, a mediumistic kind of way. And so for me, you guys know that I had a loss, like I shared, in 2014. And right from the get-go in that pregnancy, I had an intuitive knowing that that was a boy. As I did with my previous two pregnancies, I knew right from the get-go what their genders were, sexes were as well. And I had a strong feeling it was a boy, and I liked a name. And I remember thinking, if this is the right name, show me somehow, like validate that that's the right name. And the name was Henry. And I liked Henry just because I like those kind of names. I have sons named Simon and August. And, I like those kind of a little bit different, but not too wacky and kind of classic. And, or sometimes I'll just say old man names. I like the old man names. I do. And so Henry came to me and I really liked it. And Henry was also my father's middle name. And so I liked that connection as well. And so my husband wasn't super keen on it, but he was like, okay. And anyways, during that time period, I saw the name Henry everywhere, like street signs, on TV, reading in books. Somebody would drop the name, like everywhere I would see the name Henry. So I felt like that was direct validation. But the thing with that pregnancy is that with my previous two pregnancies, I had had extremely vivid and premonition type dreams with both of them, like in vivid detail. Their names, their, like I said, like when they would be born, that I was even pregnant in the first place. Like all of that information came by way of dream and super vivid. And with this pregnancy with Henry, none of that happened. Like I didn't have any intuitive dream. I didn't have an intuitive dream to tell me I was pregnant like I did with the previous two. I had a inner kind of gut feeling that he was a boy, but I didn't dream about it. And so I always kind of thought of dreams as being the way that my babies would communicate to me while I was pregnant with them. And so if I wasn't dreaming of him, well, then what the heck did that mean? And so I started to feel a bit uneasy in the pregnancy. And I had gone to my GP, and at the time, she was new to me. We didn't have a super established relationship. And if I can be so honest, I didn't really feel like we really jived that well. And so I felt a little bit uncomfortable going to her to kind of talk to her about this. But I did muster up the courage to book an appointment. And I said, I just have a feeling that something isn't right. And I didn't go into the fact that I'm not dreaming about the baby, so therefore something must be wrong, because I definitely thought she'd think I was, cuckoo if I did. So I didn't do that, but I was just like, I just feel like something's not right. And I said, I would love to get some blood work done just to verify, numbers and levels and everything's as it should be for this stage in pregnancy. And I mean, at this point, I'm like 3 months pregnant. So you would think that that would happen. I didn't understand why blood work was a thing that was denied to me at the time. But what she had said to me is, I don't really think there's any medical necessity for you to get blood work right now. Everything seems fine. At 20 weeks, you will have an ultrasound and everything will be revealed then. But for now, I think you're just fine. I think you're just feeling a bit anxious. And so I walked away feeling defeated and feeling like she didn't listen to me, and maybe that I didn't advocate enough for myself to demand blood work. Like that's just a bare minimum, I feel like, in early pregnancy. Anyways, so I just had this feeling. And then sure enough, that feeling was right. So what ended up happening was about a month after that. So it would have been in between, I was almost 4 months. So around 15 weeks or so, my dad, who was back in Nova Scotia at the time, this was obviously before he passed away, was having surgery, and it was quite a serious surgery. So I flew back to Nova Scotia so I could be there at the time of his surgery. And my sister, my brother, my mom, and I were waiting in the hospital all day while this was occurring. And as I was sitting there, I became more overcome with a feeling of unease, more and more and more unease. And I was just had this gut feeling that something was terribly wrong, not with my dad, but with my baby. And so I'm thinking this, I'm worried about this. And then I step up, I sit up and stand up off of the couch that I was sitting on. And, I feel a gush of blood. And I thought, oh no, my worst fears are happening in this moment. This is happening. I knew it. I knew this was happening. And so I went to the bathroom and, validated that I was bleeding. And I called the hospital that was up the road from me, the maternity hospital. And I called and I spoke to a nurse and I said, can I come down? Like, I'm in walking distance. I'm down the road. Can I come down and just be looked at? And she said, she was very compassionate, but she said, you're not yet 20 weeks and we actually can't provide any care to you until you're 20 weeks pregnant, which, by the way, I feel is BS. Like, I feel like that policy is BS. Why are we, is that baby not a baby until they're 20 weeks? Is my pregnancy not important until it's 20 weeks? Like, I know it has to do with viability and all of that kind of stuff, but it just felt like a little bit of a slap in the face. Like, are you serious? If I was 4 more weeks pregnant, you would help me, but you won't because I'm not. So that was devastating to me. And then I came back and I was talking to my mom and my sister about this. And I said, I was almost like, I was very anxious and I felt very panicky. Like, I was spiraling and I was just like wanting to bawl and cry. And I was very upset. And so I said, I'm just going to go to the other hospital, not to the maternity hospital, but to emerge. And I'm going to go and I'm just going to sit there. And I don't care if it takes me all day. I'm going to sit there because I need to know that my baby is okay. And I can't sit here and wait all day and not know. And so my sister and I headed off and we went there and sat for like 5 hours without being seen. And I ended up leaving because my dad was getting out of surgery. So I defeated, upset, stressed, and anxious, headed back to the other hospital where he was recovering. We spent some time with him. And then I was staying with my mom, and my mom lives about an hour outside of the city where we were. So we drove back. This is in the dead of winter. It's in January. We drove back. No, this was February. We drove back to where she lived. And the whole way she could tell that I like couldn't get my mind off of this situation. So she said, let's go back home, have a bite to eat, and then I'll take you to the local hospital, the one that was in the town that she lived in. I said, are you sure? And I was like, it's been a really long day. And she said, I know, but like, I can tell that you need to be seen for your own peace of mind. So that's what we did. We went there. I was in tears when I went through triage. I was trying to advocate for myself. I was insistent that I be looked at, and they took me seriously because I was, advocating for myself, and so they said, okay, like, you'll have to wait, but yes, we'll get somebody to come talk to you and look at you, etc. So I had this very lovely doctor come in. He was, I don't remember what kind of doctor he was, but he specialized in, women's health and birth and gynecology. He wasn't a gynecologist. He wasn't a gynecologist. Anyways, that doesn't even matter. But he was a doctor that specialized in women's health, fertility, and and birth and all that kind of stuff. And so, and I know there's a word for that, and it's at the tip of my tongue, but I cannot think about it. So, just you'll have to excuse me and forgive me for that. And so he was this lovely man, a thick Scottish accent, made me feel like so comforted just in his energy. And he said, I'm here. I'm listening. We're going to take you seriously. You're not leaving tonight until we figure out everything's okay. He ran blood work, and he said, based on your blood work, your numbers are not where they should be for how far along you are. So he said, what I've done is I've called the ultrasound tech, and even though it was middle of the night, right? And this was not like she wasn't there. She was at home. She didn't work nights. And they called her in. He called her in the middle of the night. I'm sure she was kind of like, but she did. She came in and did an ultrasound, and they determined that baby had passed away probably 4 weeks before that and was not growing anymore. And it was devastating, um, absolutely devastating. And that experience also showed me how much I can trust my gut, and showed me that I do know myself. I do know my body. I do know when something's wrong. and that we should always advocate for that. And I have so many stories in my back pocket unrelated to spirit babies that I could share with you at times about the importance of advocating for yourself and your health. But that was an experience that I went through. And Henry has come through to me many, many, many times over the years, whether through my own intuitive channel or in a mediumship reading. And he's brought me so much peace. And I know that he has been influential in bringing my youngest son to me, my youngest son, August, who I had a couple years after Henry's loss. And I don't know if they're one and the same soul, or not. Part of me feels like maybe. And this is a question actually that came to me yesterday in a mediumship reading. I was connecting to a woman, and we were connecting to her partner, who had passed in 2021, and he was bringing through a bunch of, it was absolutely amazingly beautiful reading for sure, and I'll share more about that in time. But it has nothing to do with spirit babies. But the reason that I'm thinking of that is she had asked a question at the end of that session, like, so if you're connecting to him, does that mean he hasn't reincarnated? And I said, no, not necessarily. And I said, and this is just through my experience and my understanding of it all. I said, what I understand to be true is that we can connect to the energy of a person forever. I can connect to my uncle John, who passed in 2007. Another medium can connect to him, his personality. He'll bring through things about his life. He'll bring through what he looked like. He'll bring through memories that we shared, etc. But I also know intuitively that he has reincarnated as my son, who is 15 years old and was conceived within a week of his passing. So I know that his soul has reincarnated as my son, but yet I can still connect to him energetically and who he was as my uncle. And so I bring that through because of this experience with Henry and with August. There's part of me, and I'm getting really huge rush of goosebumps as I say this. I was just going to say there's a part of me that feels, I know that to be true, that they are of the same soul. And so these standing up goose pimples all over my body, I feel like validates that Henry would have reincarnated as August, but yet Henry's energy of who he was as Henry still remains. There's a topic around spirit babies that some people, there's a lot of people that don't agree with certain things, and this is a very judgment-free zone. So I'm going to preface to say that. And I hold no judgment for anybody, and either does the spirit world. But, and you might have gone through an experience like the one I'm about to share about, and you may feel shame or judgment. You may have received judgment from another person. You may not have forgiven yourself for this. But what I know to be true is that babies that have been lost through abortion, we also can connect to those babies, and they don't judge us for it, and they're not angry, and they don't hold judgment towards us for that. And I'll give you an example. There was a reading I did, and I'm going to try to keep it as anonymous as possible because this is a sensitive topic. Many months ago, but it was in 2023. Okay, so sometime in 2023, I did this reading. We did a combination reading. We did past lives. We also did mediumship and intuitive guidance. And when I was connecting for mediumship and bringing through different people that were in spirit for this person sitting in front of me, I connected to the energy of a young male. And this young male had told me that he had not been born, that he had been conceived, but had not been born. And so I know we're talking about some sort of loss here. And so I asked my client, I have a young male that makes me feel like he was conceived but not born. Do you understand this information? She nodded yes. I said, okay. And I kept going with this little spirit baby. Tell me more. Why are you here today? What is your connection to the person in front of me? And he told me that this was his mom and that she had made a choice, the choice that she felt was best for her when she was very, very young, that she could not provide the life that she would have wanted to give to this little one. And so the choice was made that she would terminate the pregnancy. And, this is something that she didn't talk about. She didn't share with people. Really, it was just like her and the baby's father that truly knew about this. And, she certainly had a lot of guilt that she had carried with her for like 30 years. And he came through to tell me, and by the way, this is something that's come through, I would say, if not every time, then almost every time I've connected to a baby that's been lost in this way, terminated. Um, they all say the same thing. And that is, I don't want you to carry guilt. I don't want you to burden yourself with guilt and shame. You have nothing to feel guilty or ashamed about. There's an acknowledgement, a knowing that that little soul, previous to being conceived, would know that the outcome of this conception, of this life, would not be to be carried to term. It would end during pregnancy, that he would not be born. There was an awareness of this. And that in itself is powerful information, I believe. And he said, I knew that this would happen, and it was part of my soul's evolution, and it was part of her soul's evolution to go through this experience. And, there's nothing to be forgiven. I'm okay. Talked about things that he's doing in the spirit world, the way he's evolved, hobbies, things he's really good at, part of his mission. Even went so far as to give me a name. And I said, he gives me a name. And I said, I'm not sure if you would have named him officially, or if this is a name that you would have just liked or thought of, daydreamed about, or not, or if this is a name that he's assigned to himself, but he does tell me his name. Are you open to hearing it? And she said, yes, of course. And so I told her what it was, and this was instant emotion came over her. And she said, oh, that's his father's name. That's his father's name. And she hadn't officially thought of or named him, but he chose, as a soul, chose to identify himself with the name of his father, which was so healing for this person. And they have since reached out to me and said, I know it's been like 6 months, but I just have to tell you that has created such healing in my life, because I was carrying something and I didn't know how heavy that was on me, and it's released, and I don't feel guilt anymore. And I feel happiness that he's still there. He's still connected to me. He still views me as his mom, that there's no anger. There's no, there's no judgment, and that I one day will be connected to him again, and, They had also shared with me that since then, she has received validation signs and things like that from him, things that he brought through in our reading of ways that he will show up for her moving forward, or things that she experiences and knows come from him. And I think that's just the most beautiful. And I know that we can all have differences of opinion about things like that, but ultimately, just sharing information, to help, because I know somebody listening will be helped by hearing that story. And so let's talk quickly about how to connect to your own spirit baby. So, first of all, it goes without saying that there would need to be an openness, a curiousness, um, to receiving spirit communication and spirit messages, for you to receive messages. It's not to say that your little one is not already trying to send you messages. Of course they are, but spirit only gives us what we can handle, right? If we are not open to receiving something, we're going to be blind to it. Remember what we believe we perceive, right? So we need to have at least an openness with that. There are many ways to begin to try to open that channel within yourself. Some people really, really do well with meditation, traditional meditation. For me, that's something that doesn't work so well for me. I work better with um, guided meditation, right? So listening to a guided meditation, by doing so, you're suspending your own thought process. You're giving yourself a moment to suspend your thinking hat, so to speak, and you just become open. So just like when we're sleeping, we're just open to receive. We're not actively going, okay, and next this is going to happen in my dream. We're not directing that play, we're just watching it like a movie. We're observing it. And that's because we're open, so we can observe and we can receive. And so there needs to be some sort of act that helps to suspend your thinking cap, right? Your brain, your thoughts, and allow yourself to be open. And this is how we raise our consciousness, so that we can see things that we or feel things or know things that we previously were not open to, so to speak. So things like guided meditations may work. Things like writing, journaling, right? You can channel to journal. Things like getting lost in a task that you really enjoy. I always advise my clients to think about where they go. Like, what are you doing when you're in the zone? What is the zone for you? Is it when you are gardening? Is it when you're driving in the car? Is it when you're in the shower? Is it when you're making dinner? What are you doing when you get into the zone? And by the zone, what I mean by that is when you suspend your thinking cap, right? When you're like, you're not actively thinking, you're in the moment. You just are. Where you're like, where did the last 5 minutes go? I wasn't thinking about my grocery list. I wasn't thinking about my to-do list. I just kind of like lost that time. That is what we're talking about when we're in the zone. Again, big old goosebumps. So please, please, please figure out what that is and practice with it a little bit. If you do that and you're also open to it, then you can begin to ask for things. So you could say, we're going to set our intentions. Okay, so our little one in spirit. And by the way, you can do this with anybody in spirit that you want to hear from. It doesn't have to be a spirit baby. It can be a pet. It can be your mom and dad. Doesn't matter. You set your intention that you would like to receive information, a sign that they are in fact around, that they are supporting you. And, once you get really going with this, then you can receive a multitude of information in all kinds of different ways. And you just trust, like, okay, I'm seeing this after I ask for you. Therefore, that's from you, right? And that's where I'm at now. So I'm just like, I don't need to question it. If I'm asking for that and then I see that in my mind's eye, I just trust full heartedly that is from you, right? Like, that's just where I'm at. But that's a practice and that takes time to get there. What helps in the beginning as you're learning to trust and feel more confident in your connection is asking for specific things. So you could say, hey, I really want to know that you're around me, that you're still connected to me, that you're still guiding me, that we still have this invisible thread connecting us soul to soul. And I know and I believe that you're around me, but I'd love to see evidence of it in my reality. So could you please show me strawberry shortcake? This is just coming off the top of my head. Strawberry shortcake in the next, I don't know, 3 days. Give it a timeline if you want to. Be flexible. I know that it takes a lot from the spirit world to, line things up to make things happen, so to speak. But if you could show me that, that would be great. And then release it and just be open. After you've set your intention to be open, what happens is you become to notice things that maybe you wouldn't notice before. You just become more aware. And also, our loved ones in spirit, our spirit babies, they are energetic form. They're in their energetic form now, right? So they are going to reveal things to us, whether they are, if you ask for a spirit sign that's like a bird or a bunny or, whatever, they are influencing our intuition as well as that sign's intuition, if it's a living thing, to be in the same place at the same time, to notice each other, right? So in the case of, say, you asked for a pigeon, or I don't know, let's think of a more rare bird. Okay, let's think about, I don't know, a woodpecker. Okay, a woodpecker is something that's common, it's around, but we don't see them every single day. Okay, Spirit, I'd love to see a woodpecker. Okay. And then you see one and you instantly get a little bit of a jolt and you recognize that this is something for me. And not only are you getting that jolt, but that woodpecker gets it as well, because your loved one in spirit, your spirit baby, is influencing that woodpecker's energy to notice you as well. So you'll notice when you have a spirit sign by way of animal or living thing that they act in a way that's not typical for them. They get close to you, maybe they just stare at you for like 3 or 4 minutes and you're like, this is not normal. Like, normally this bird would be gone by now. Why is it so close to me? Why is it staring at me? Why do I even notice it? These are ways that we receive signs. I'm also thinking, I'll give you another example that comes directly from a reading that I did before. It's not a spirit baby example, but it's an example of somebody asking for a sign and then their loved one in spirit giving it to them. So this person was a mom who had lost her adult daughter and is devastated by this loss, as she would be, of course. And soon after her passing, she had asked for a sign. So there was a specific like phrase or term. I can't remember what it was in this moment. It's been many years, but that her and her daughter used to say to each other. So it was kind of like a code word of sorts. And so she had asked her daughter in spirit, hey, please show me that code word, any way that you can. And so she shared with me that she had asked for that. And then a day or two later, she was driving on the 401, which is major highway here in Ontario. She's driving on the 401 and she randomly, like by mistake, it's just kind of like on autopilot, gets off at the wrong exit. Is kind of in a moment where as soon as she realizes she's on the exit, she's like, what the heck am I doing on the exit? Like, it's like something almost like took over her steering wheel. She's just in the zone, right? She's just letting her intuition guide her. Her thinking cap was off for a moment. And so she finds herself on the exit and she's like, now I got to get back in the 401. damn, she's kind of annoyed by it. So she's in the exit. And then as she gets to the top, when she's about to turn left so she can get back to the off ramp, she is behind a car, directly behind a car. And on the license plate of that car is her daughter's code word. And this is like instant emotion, instant recognition. Oh my God, you're here, and you took me off the freeway. You got me to be here. Because if she hadn't done that, if she hadn't have got off at that time, she would never have found herself behind that car. That's another way. That's the magic of the spirit world, which is just incredible if you think about it. But yeah, we just need to be open. We need to be curious. If there's a level of being afraid or fearful, that will influence our ability to receive messages. So that's when our mind gets in the way, and it's like, I know I asked for that, but it's probably not. And then we are dismissing spirit communication when we've asked for that specific thing, and then we're like, no, it couldn't be, right? That is spirit communication. So there needs to be a level of openness for this to really work the way you want it to. So remain open, hopeful, have some faith. Say what it is that you're most hoping for, right? The more specific, the better, because the more specifics it is, the less likely you are to go, oh, that's just a coincidence. Because if, in the case of the story I just shared, you see the code word, you're going to be like, you literally can't make that up. Like, that's not something that, anybody else has on the back of their license plate. So the odds of that being a coincidence are slim to none, right? Like, that especially, and also her, being in the place she wouldn't have been otherwise. All of that is definitely something that makes it much more hard to dismiss. So get specific, stay open. Please know that our loved one in spirit, whether they are our spirit babies or our mom and dad or our spouse or our brother or grandparents in spirit, they are communicating with us all the time. And they communicate via our thoughts and our emotions. When we feel something about them, when we think something about them, we are inviting their energy to us in that moment. They are with us in that moment. And that's why we will feel sensations like, why did I just get goosebumps and I'm not cold? Why does it feel like there's a hand on the back of my neck, even though there's not a hand on the back of my neck? Why did I just hear that song that I always think of when I think of my brother? Why did I see that when, it's a beautiful journey. I want you to be open and curious to explore it in your own way, in your own time. I hope today's spirit stories bring you some comfort, knowing that you will see that little spirit baby once again, that you will always be connected. They will always be around and guide you. And if you're somebody that is, navigating the fertility journey, please know that there, if it's in your path to have children, more than one child, etc., that little soul is already tethered to you and is just waiting for the right time. That's just a beautiful message. I want to share one more thing before I end. Here we go. One more thing, because I know you guys love these kind of stories. Okay, so many, many years ago, after I gave birth to my youngest, August, I kind of before that pregnancy, and even before Henry, I had always wanted, about 4 children. I always wanted 3 to 4 children, but I would have been happy with 4. And we had our first children 2 years apart in our mid and late 20s. And so if it had been up to me, I would have kept going. And then another 2 years would have had the other one. 2 years later, had the other one for like a total of 4 and been done. But my husband was not of the same mind and was like, you know what? We've got 2 kids. We've got a boy and a girl. let's be done. And obviously partners have to be on the same page on that front. And so there was years that went by that I just kind of was like, it's probably not going to happen, and I always felt like somebody was missing though. And then um Henry was conceived, I finally got my husband on board. It took a long time, but he got on board and conceived right away with Henry, and then experienced the loss. And so after that, continued to try. And I knew that I really wanted that third baby. I knew that I had never felt done. I know that other mamas here, you will understand what I mean by that. Like there's a feeling when we know we're done, and we know when we don't feel that yet, right? So at that point I was like, I don't know what that is, because I don't feel that way. So that kind of tells me that there must be somebody still missing. And then we conceived August. And leading up to August's birth, my husband would joke around very often, okay, like get ready because we're going to have number 4 now, because we can't have 3 and not 4. And also, our first 2 kids are close in age. And then August, there's quite a age gap. So August is 10 years younger, almost to the day, than our oldest child. So there's a big age gap between. And my husband was like, well, we're going to have to, we had a pair, we got to have another pair, And I remember going, I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, we'll see how this goes. And in the first months after I had August, I experienced what many mothers had told me would one day come. And that was this feeling of, okay, I'm done. And it was just like this knowing. It wasn't because I was stressed or overwhelmed. It was more like just a calm awareness and knowing came over me that I'm done. This is it. I'm done. And it felt very peaceful and comforting to know that. And my husband was still like, no, like let's try for another one. And I was like, no, 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 no. And he didn't push it too far. And then I had a reading with my friend Natasha, who some of you will know. And she told me that there was a little girl around me. So this is spirit baby. Okay. And she said, there's a little girl. And I feel like she described her, what she would look like. And she said, I feel like she would like to come to you, and she will come to you. And then I had shared with Natasha, I said, well, I kind of feel like I'm done now. And am I going to like screw up fate or mess up something if I choose not to have another baby? Like knowing that there's one waiting for me, like that felt strange to me to think about. And she had shared, no, absolutely not. We have free will here. Okay. So if you choose that you don't want to have another baby, she will absolutely understand. It's just coming out that if you do want to have another one, that she will swoop right down to you. And I thought, okay, well, food for thought, but like, I kind of still feel like I'm done. And so I took some time and I like really sat into that feeling so I could make a decision that was not based on stress or overwhelm. It was really based on just kind of wisdom and intuitive knowing. And during this time that I was contemplating all of that, I had a dream of this little blonde baby, blonde blue-eyed baby, and little girl. And I was like, oh, now I'm dreaming about you. Like, what are you trying to tell me? Ultimately, I made the decision that that was it. I wasn't going to have any more. And so I told Natasha I'd made this decision, and she said, it's possible she might go to somebody that's close to you, whether in your family or in your friend group, somebody that's, in your circle, so to speak, so that this little one can still be in your life in some way. I said, okay, like super interesting. And then a few months later, was it a few months or is it a year? Between 6 and 12 months or so later, my sister, who had recently got married right before that, told us that she was expecting. And I kind of smiled and knew in my heart of hearts, I'm like, oh, she went to my sister. She's with my sister. She's going to be my niece. And so I told my sister this, and my sister was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm having a boy. And she's like, I don't know. I don't feel girl vibes at all. And I was like, I don't know. I feel really certain that you're having a girl. And so then, when she was a few months along, she discovered that she was actually having twins, and she was having fraternal twins. And so they did decide to find out what they were having before babies were born. And they had like a little get together, a party. And I was not there because I don't live in the same province. So I attended via FaceTime. And, uh, and I was thinking to myself the whole time, she feels boy vibes. I know there's a girl. So maybe they're having a girl and a boy, but there's absolutely a girl baby in her belly. And so they did the reveal and they had a boy and a girl. And now those twins are 6 years old, and little girl is blonde and blue eyed, just as Natasha saw, just as I dreamt of. And so I wanted to share that because that's a beautiful way to end the episode. She's still in my life in some way. I don't know her as well as I would like to because we have always lived in different provinces, but that's going to change very soon. As you guys know, that I'm moving back to my home province in the next few months, so we will get to know each other much better, and I'm so looking forward to that. And that's where I'll leave you guys today. I hope you enjoyed all of the stories that I'm sharing. I hope that it brings you some comfort and peace and some hope as well if you are someone who is on that journey yourself. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again next week. Bye, everyone. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider hopping on over to wherever you listen to your podcast and giving it a 5-star review. Thank you so much in advance. If you'd like to keep in touch, please head over to my website, theintuitiverising.com, to keep up with all the things that I have been doing. I also have a private Facebook community for people just like you. It's called the Intuitive Rising Community. All you got to do is request to join, and I will let you in. Keep rising.